I thought it was junk. Turns out it paid off my mortgage. It was a Saturday morning, one of those early spring days that smells like wet concrete and regret. I wasn't even planning to stop, but the garage sale sign was hand-painted, crooked, and desperate looking. Just the kind of place that might have a box of mismatched tools or a socket set missing the ratchet. I poked around. Old mugs, a broken accordion, VHS tapes with no cases. Then I saw it, half buried under a tarp next to a cracked lawn flamingo. A lamp. Not beautiful, not even interesting, just odd. Heavy, for one thing. I expected it to rattle or creak when I picked it up, but it didn't. Solid as a bowling ball. The cord was a frayed mess, the switch hung loose, and one side of the stained glass shade was cracked straight through. The glass itself looked like melted candy. Still, I was thinking I could maybe gut it, use the parts for the old shed fixture that sparked last winter. The guy running the sale didn't even stand up from his lawn chair, just said $5. I didn't argue. I threw it in the back of the truck and forgot about it. For 2 weeks, it sat on the garage floor behind a cooler full of dead batteries. I meant to strip it. I didn't. Life kept interrupting. Work, bills, the dog getting sick, and somewhere between all that, the lamp just faded into the clutter. Then the lights went out. Big storm. Transformers down all over the county. I went digging for the battery lantern, knocked over a box, and there it was, glinting in the flashlight beam, like it had been waiting for this moment. I froze. The way the glass caught the light, it didn't just shine, it shimmered, like there was depth to it. Layers. Inside the cracks, the colors seemed to move. And the pattern, tiny dragonflies, wings outstretched, cut from pale blue and amber panes, each soldered with obsessive precision. I turned the shade, brushing off years of dust. That's when I saw the etching, barely visible, worn by time. Tiffany Studios. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing. I set the flashlight down, cradled the lamp in both hands, and lowered myself to the floor like I was holding a newborn. It had to be fake, right? A knockoff, a reproduction, probably mass-produced for department stores in the 60s. But the weight, the details. The base had this ornate vine pattern I hadn't noticed before, and the patina, real bronze, not paint. I flipped it over, ran my finger along the underside. There was something else under the base plate. Another mark. That's when my hands started shaking. I opened my laptop on the workbench and started searching. Not just Tiffany lamp, but Dragonfly Tiffany Bronze Leaded Shade Original. Image after image, museum listings, auction archives, private collections. They looked identical. One cracked shade, sold in 2006, fetched $782,000. And that signature? Matched. I sat there in the dark garage, storm raging outside, a dusty lamp in my lap, and one thought pounding in my head. What the hell did I just find? He didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the lamp. Not just the pattern, not just the colors, the idea of it, the possibility, the weight of what it might mean. His mortgage, his debt, the broken down Ford Outback with the duct-taped bumper. His knees weren't what they used to be. He hadn't taken a vacation in 9 years. What if? He kept hearing that imaginary auctioneer's voice. Sold for $782,000. It echoed like a joke he was afraid to laugh at. But he wasn't naive. He knew there were fakes, replicas, dead ringers made in basements or factories halfway around the world. The internet was a rabbit hole of almost Tiffany stories. People who thought they'd struck gold, only to find out they were holding colored plastic and wishful thinking. He read every single one, twice, sometimes out loud, just to hear how stupid it would sound if it were him. By 5 a.m., His coffee had gone cold, and his mind was made up. He needed a real answer, from someone who actually knew. There was a shop he remembered, downtown, tucked between a record store and a bakery that still smelled like cinnamon sugar at all hours. He'd been in there once, years ago, to get a broken lamp rewired. Nothing fancy. But the guy who ran it had a reputation. Quiet, particular, didn't say much, but people said he worked with museums sometimes. The kind of person who would know a Tiffany from a tin can. He wraps the lamp in 2 towels, slid it carefully into a moving blanket, and nested it in the passenger seat like a sleeping child. He drove slow. Every pothole felt like a crime. The shop didn't even have a sign, just frosted windows and a green door with peeling paint. Inside, the air smelled like dust and ozone. Half a dozen hanging light fixtures swayed gently in the draft from the heater. The man behind the counter wore a gray wool vest and round glasses that magnified his eyes just enough to make him seem perpetually interested. He looked up, didn't smile, and said, "That's not something you see every day." He didn't touch the lamp, just tilted his head. "Let's bring it to the back." In the workshop, the light was warm and gold and silent. No radio, no ticking clock. Just the sound of the magnifier arm being adjusted. He watched as the man circled the lamp. Examined the base, brushed a fingertip along the lead lines. He didn't speak for 5 minutes. Then 10. Finally, he looked up. "Where did you say you got this?" "Garage sale, $5. No reaction. "Do you see that?" the man said, pointing to a junction in the soldering. "That's not hobbyist work. That's original. Studio. The glass, too, cut by hand. See the ripple in the amber pane? Machines don't make that." He swallowed. "So it could be real?" The man didn't blink. "I've seen confirmed pieces that were less convincing." They spent 2 hours comparing everything. Auction records, catalog scans from the 20s. He brought out a blacklight. The dragonflies glowed like cathedral windows. Even the patina on the bronze base matched examples from a Tiffany collector's archive. When he finally stood to leave, the man didn't offer a price, just gave him a card with a name, a phone number, and 3 handwritten words on the back. "You should insure this." That night, he didn't sit inside. He sat on the porch, in the dark. Just him, a lamp, and the quiet buzz of power lines overhead. And for the first time in years, he felt not lucky, chosen. And that scared him even more. The next morning, he called the number on the card. It rang 5 times before a voice answered. Brisk, clipped, professional. Anderson and Rue, appraisals and private acquisitions. He gave his name, hesitated, then explained what he had. The voice didn't respond immediately. Then, "Can you send photos?" He cleared a space on the table, set up a lamp, and took a dozen shots. Base, shade, signature. Detail work on the vines, the cracked pane. He attached them to the email and stared at the send button for a full minute before clicking it. Within the hour, they called back. Same voice, less clip now. "When can you bring it in?" They were based 3 hours away near the coast. He didn't wait, he didn't eat lunch. Just made sure the lamp was wrapped, double-boxed, padded in foam, belted into the back seat like a fragile old relative. He kept checking the rear-view mirror, the whole, not because of traffic, because of the lamp. The office was in a sleek building with smoked glass and polished brass lettering. A far cry from garage sales and dusty workshops. The kind of place where you instinctively lower your voice and wipe your shoes twice. A woman in a blazer met him at the door. "Mr. Hill?" He nodded. She smiled. "Right this way." She led him down a carpeted hallway into a room that looked like it belonged in a law firm. Mahogany conference table, velvet chairs, soft lighting that made the wood gleam. On the wall, framed covers of auction catalogs. Tiffany, Cartier, Lalique. He felt underdressed, overwhelmed. Then the man entered. Gray suit, no tie, mid-50s, calm eyes. "Martin," he said, shaking hands. "May I see it?" He unwrapped the lamp slowly, piece by piece. The room went quiet. Martin leaned in, adjusted his glasses, didn't speak. For 15 minutes, he didn't say a word. Just studied, inspected. Ran a gloved fingertip along the shade's solder lines. Tilted the lamp into the light. Then, "You know what this is?" He nodded, hesitant. "I think so." Martin exhaled. "You're not wrong." He pulled a rolling cart over and carefully set the lamp down. Opened a laptop, tapped a few keys, brought up a high-resolution database of authenticated Tiffany pieces. "See this here?" He pointed to a photo on screen. "Same pattern, same vine scroll, but yours," he angled the shade just right, "has a flaw. See that crack?" He frowned. "Yeah, I figured that made it worthless." Martin gave a half smile. "Actually, it might make it priceless." He explained, in 1902, there had been a limited run with a cooling defect in the glass, a flaw in the batch. Most were rejected, scrapped. But a few made it through. Fewer than 20 are known to exist. All are in private collections or museums. "And yours," Martin said, "has 2 studio signatures, one on the base, one on the shade, which suggests it was part of an early trial series." He felt his ears ringing. Martin kept talking. Quiet, professional, precise. "Last time a confirmed example sold, Zurich 2020. Price undisclosed. But the rejected offer was," he turned the screen, "this." He read the number. Then he read it again. 6 figures, then a comma, then another. It felt like someone had opened a window in his chest. Martin sat back, letting it sink in. "There's interest. I've had 2 separate collectors inquire about a dragonfly with this exact flaw in the last 6 months. Word travels fast in this world." He nodded, still stunned. "Would you be open to a private appraisal process? Confidential, controlled, best offer scenario." He wanted to speak, but all he could do was nod again. Martin opened a folder. Contracts, insurance documents, custody forms. "We'd keep it here, vaulted, fully insured. You'll retain ownership until you decide." He signed. A man in gloves came in, picked up the lamp with the care of someone handling a newborn, carried it through a thick door that clicked softly shut behind them. He sat there, staring at the empty mat. It felt like something sacred had left the room. That night, he didn't sleep. Again. He just sat at the kitchen table, eyes on the spot where it had rested. It still felt warm somehow. Just before midnight, his phone buzzed. A message from Martin. One line. "First offer's in. You should sit down." He stared at the message for nearly a minute before opening it. The number didn't look real. He checked it again. No decimals, no typos. It had a comma in the millions place. He reread the words. Initial offer, USD. It was more than he'd made in the last 30 years combined. He dropped his phone on the table, picked it up, walked a lap around the kitchen. Then another. He sat, stood, sat again. Every nerve in his body felt lit up, like someone had flipped a switch he didn't know he had. His first thought wasn't even about the money. It was, who are these people? And how did they already know? He hadn't posted anything online, hadn't talked, just a few quiet conversations in controlled rooms. And yet, somehow, they knew, and they wanted it badly. Martin called 5 minutes later, calm, measured, as if this sort of thing happened every Tuesday. We reached out to a short list of verified collectors. One responded almost immediately. They've been looking for this exact variant. They've agreed to wire a hold payment into escrow if you're willing to accept. He still couldn't speak. Martin took the silence as hesitation. It's okay to take a moment. We'll hold the offer open for 48 hours. You're in control. That phrase echoed. You're in control. It didn't feel like it. It felt like he'd been handed a live wire and told to carry it across a river. He spent the rest of the day pacing the house, watering plants he didn't remember planting, making coffee he forgot to drink. At one point, he stood in front of the bathroom mirror for 20 minutes, just staring. He tried to call his brother. No answer. Thought about calling his daughter. Didn't want to scare her. He even opened a browser and typed, "What to do when someone offers you $1 million," like there was a WikiHow for it. That evening, a second offer came in. This one higher, not by much, but enough to suggest a bidding war might start. Enough to tell him the first one wasn't a fluke. And then came the silence. No calls that night. No new messages. Just him, alone in the house, staring at his old dining table and thinking about how weird it was that everything could change because of one thing you almost didn't buy. He tried to sleep, couldn't. Got up at 3 a.m. and made a grilled cheese sandwich. Stood by the sink eating it cold, wondering who else in the world had ever stood barefoot in a kitchen holding a $1.3 million dilemma in their head. The final straw came the next morning. A courier showed up at his door. No signature required, no name, just a black envelope sealed with red wax. Inside, a handwritten note. No logo, no phone number. Just 7 words, neatly inked in looping script. "We know what you have. We want it. Name your number." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down at the kitchen table and laid the envelope flat beside his coffee. He stared at it like it might move again, like it might open its mouth and whisper more. A breeze rattled the window screen. The house creaked in the slow, moaning way old houses do. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The world, as far as he could tell, remained completely unaware that something enormous had just shifted inside. He grabbed a legal pad and started to make a list. Pros, cons, questions, risks. He got 3 lines in and stopped. What was he doing? Negotiating like he had experience? Like this wasn't all new and terrifying? He scratched out the page and started a new one. What do I want? That list filled up quicker. Pay off the house, fix the roof, new truck, maybe help Sarah with her student loans, maybe set something aside for Molly if she ever got married. Simple things, quiet things, and yet the offers kept tugging his thoughts in another direction. Not just freedom, but transformation. He walked out onto the porch. The morning light was coming in soft through the trees. He could smell honeysuckle on the breeze. His neighbor's dog barked twice, then went quiet. He wondered what it would feel like to never worry again. About bills, about maintenance, about legacy. That's what this was now. Legacy. He didn't want to be the man who sold too fast, or too slow, or not at all and regretted it forever. By noon, he drafted a message to Martin, but hadn't sent it, then deleted it entirely. The truth was, the lamp had become something more than valuable. It had become sacred, because it reminded him that chance still existed, that a man's story didn't have to be finished just because the pages were worn and dog-eared. He went back inside, made himself another cup of coffee, and finally sat down to call Martin. The phone rang once before the line picked up. This time, he didn't hesitate. "I'm ready," he said. "Let's see how high they're willing to go." Martin's voice didn't flinch. "You'll want to be near your phone tonight." Now, things were moving fast, and he wasn't sure he wanted them to stop. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. He thought it would be a wire transfer. It wasn't. 3 weeks later, a man with a clipped accent and a diplomatic passport flew in from Zurich and arrived at his front door with a briefcase. The kind you only see in movies. Polished aluminum, thumbprint lock, escorted by a local attorney who said very little, but nodded with warmth like they'd done this before. The deal was made in his dining room. No banks, no middlemen, just documents, a notary, and a small velvet pouch laid gently on the table beside the briefcase. They let him hold it one last time. He ran his fingers over the leaded glass, the tiny dragonflies, the uneven crack on the back edge. Then he looked up and said simply, "Thank you." The man bowed slightly. The pouch was zipped. The lamp was gone. He sat in silence for a long time afterward. Not because he regretted it, but because he needed to understand it had really happened. That a thing bought for $5 in the dust had rewritten his future. In the days that followed, things moved quickly. His mortgage disappeared. So did the credit card debt that had haunted him for years. He bought his daughter a small but sunny home 5 minutes from a good school. He replaced his rusted-out truck with something quiet, safe, and comfortable. He made a list of people he owed small kindnesses to and paid them back with interest, both in dollars and in gestures. He took his grandson to a baseball game, bought the good seats, the ones behind home plate. They both wore matching caps and ate chili dogs and stayed through the 9th inning even though it rained. His grandson fell asleep on the ride home, still clutching the foam finger. That night he wept, not for the money, for the feeling of enough. There were even whispers later, discreet ones, that the lamp had gone to a museum or maybe a private collector. He didn't check. He didn't want to, because for him, the story wasn't about where it ended up. It was about the moment he realized his luck hadn't run out. That sometimes, even after years of scraping by, life handed you something that changed everything, and all he had to do was pick it up.